Welcome back, Husker fans. Week 7 is here. No longer are we playing the easier games on our schedule. We're stuck playing some tough teams, starting now with Purdue. So, Gary, we're 3-3, 500 officially, and we're number 1 in the Big Ten West. This is... Why the hell are you laughing? It's true.
It's true.
So, this is where the wheels always come off. Tell me that's not going to happen against this awesome passing attack.
Yeah, I mean, their passing game hasn't been as impressive as I think a lot of people anticipated, or it usually is. Charlie Jones, their number 1 receiver, he's one of the top guys in the entire Big Ten. I think he's going to be a problem, but they've got guys all over. Their quarterback can make all kinds of throws. You've heard Bush and Mickey Joseph both talking about that. I don't have a lot of confidence going into this game just because they're so well-rounded. I feel like Nebraska, especially the last 2 games, has done a pretty good job of finding weaknesses and exploiting those. And then on top of that, making the second half adjustments, hanging in there. I don't think we can fall behind too far to these guys. And I don't think there's going to be as many holes to exploit off the jump and or after the half. But I think Nebraska can definitely do some things that they haven't been doing so far this season to throw some wrinkles at them and show them some things that there isn't a lot on tape for them to have been able to prepare for. We'll get into some of that when we start looking at film, but it's going to be a tough battle, man.
Well, let's go straight to the film. Gary's picked out some plays to show y'all that kind of sums up Purdue, what to expect, what we need to do against them. But let's take a look.
So we talked about Charlie Jones being their top receiver. They've got 5th and 6th year guys all over the place here, and the big leader of their team, kind of like we have Vokalek, is their tight end, number 87 here at the bottom of the screen. And they don't do a lot of this. They don't do a lot of stacked lines and tight end lined up like that. They spread everybody out. They do a lot of 4 and 5 wide receivers, sometimes a lot of empty backfield. One thing I noticed watching film was a lot of times when they did stack the line and had a guy in the backfield, they tend to run it more out of that formation. They're setting it up here. It's a really good play call. He's gonna drop back. I think he might do a little fake RPO or play action. But look how stacked Minnesota has the box there, anticipating the run. And this is something that Nebraska tends to bite on. Minnesota does a pretty good job of staying disciplined and following it. But that tight end's actually going to leak out down towards the 30, and then he's going to break on a go route. And that's exactly where he throws to. Like I said, the defense did a good job staying with it and not getting lost in the backfield with their eyes or chasing receivers all over the place and letting this guy get scot-free down the seam. But that's just something I noticed watching this game. Minnesota's linebackers seem to stay pretty disciplined, and that's one of a few things that I think is going to be very important for our defense. I think our linebackers and our safeties particularly are going to kind of be the make or break of this because of the plays that they try to run, both passing and when they do run. And I wouldn't be surprised if they run against us a little more than they have everybody else, just because our rush defense hasn't been that great. And I think it's pretty obvious that everybody game plans for a passing game against these guys. But 2 new corners, hopefully Newsom's good to go so that you've got at least one veteran guy that can kind of stick with Jones. But it's going to be a big test for guys like Hartzog and Moore, and if Clark gets in there and things like that. So we'll see how it goes, but it's just little gadget things like this. They do a lot of mesh and cross routes, and that's pretty obvious, and you can find those pretty much every game you watch. That's the majority of what they run. But plays like this are going to be things that I think we'll see a good chunk of, just to see how well prepared, specifically the young guys are, and if the linebackers can stay home.
So, Gary, anybody that watches the channel knows that you're always harping on Nebraska's soft pass defense, the way we play so far off the line, rarely jamming. That Moore interception, he jammed and it worked out. I'm assuming Purdue's going to eat that up.
Yeah, they'll exploit it for sure. They set things up and then they're kind of strategic with when they take shots downfield. They're not really going to try and stretch you too deep. There'll be a lot of mesh and cross routes and over and underneath things and whatnot. And that Moore play was a different defensive setup than this. He knew he had safety help over the top. This here is just like a cover 4 almost. You've got the corners and safeties are all about the same depth, 7-8 yards. And In this play, you got to keep an eye on that tight end. He lined up, in the fullback, H-back spot, whatever you want to call it there. So I'm sure the linebackers are keeping an eye on that. But with as deep as that is, and they do this in variations, and we'll show some other plays where they do it, but Charlie Jones at the top of the screen is going to run straight at that corner up by the 30. And then in the slot there, number 8, he's going to get to about the 30 and hook underneath. And there's just going to be too much space for that safety to try to come up and play. And by the time he recognizes what's happening, the corner is actually closer and has to jump off of his guy to come in. But I mean, you're looking at an 8-9 yard play on first down. That's disastrous for a defense. If you're giving up that kind of yards on first down, and Nebraska is very susceptible to this. So, but again, with young guys and those types of receivers, it's going to be very tough to do a ton of man and just rely on, the 2 safeties to help out over the top when they're going 4 wide and having that running back and tight end come out of the backfield. So I'm hoping, like you said, Moore jumped a route, knowing he had safety help. Farmer jumped a route and got a pick. So hopefully they're a little more prepared for this. But from what we've seen at this point coming up until I would say last week, there's a lot of this we're going to see coming up on Saturday. And I just hope that they made adjustments ahead of time and we're not getting gouged for 8-9 yards on 1st and 10s. All right, so switching to the defensive side of the ball, Purdue's right middle of the road. They're 7th in the Big Ten against the run game. And I think a lot of that is because they focus in on the running back run game. Minnesota, I think everybody would agree, most people would agree at least, is better than Syracuse. They beat Minnesota and got beat by Syracuse. Syracuse did a lot of quarterback running, and Minnesota just doesn't do that. I think their quarterback had, his stats showed, I think, 5 carries for -1 yard. I think he actually took off once or twice. The rest was probably sacks. But you and I we've talked the last couple games, and we definitely talked after Rutgers, especially with the poor offensive line play. They've got to get creative with protecting Casey and also using it against defenses that guys can get into the backfield so easy. So on this play, this is just a very simple, I just want to show, how they kind of stack the box and they worry about the running back, where the quarterback run play is going to be there. So in this situation, it's an RPO. I think everybody knows Minnesota is giving the ball to the running back 99% of the time. So the nickel doesn't have anybody. He's kind of watching that H-back tight end spot. But as soon as the ball snaps and he does, it starts the RPO where it's going to be a handoff or he's going to keep it, everybody's under the assumption running back's keeping it. The nickel's going to jump up, shoot the edge pretty quick, and he gets him pretty tight to the pile. And then he still hands it to the running back. Running back gets the first down, but that's kind of not the point. I'm just saying 21, how hard he comes up to that edge. It's going to be there. If Casey, it doesn't have to be every play, keep them on their toes. If this is us and Casey keeps that, he's got the edge and he's getting a lot more than that 2 yards, and he can get out of bounds. He can get down. He doesn't have to take the hits. I think we're going to have to utilize things like that. 1, to keep him healthy throughout the game, but 2, our offensive line doesn't block like theirs does. I mean, look how many of their guys have defensive guys on the ground and creating lanes. We don't do a lot of that. We are better at run blocking than we are pass blocking, but just an example of things. One of the things I think we're going to have to do, I don't think we have a choice. I think we have to do, 1, to give them something they don't have a lot of game film on, and 2, to aid our offensive line in any opportunity we can. Here's an example of Syracuse design running the quarterback here, and they kind of use the aggressiveness of Purdue against them. It's not perfect because the linebacker does a good job playing the run, but he just doesn't do a good job wrapping up and tackling. They're going to send, 19 there is going to come in motion, and from the snap, everything's going to flow like the play's running left. Quarterback's going to keep it and come right. The key thing that sets this play off is the right tackle makes a really good block on the edge. We have not had that luck with our tackles. I think Hunter Anthony is going to start at right tackle just based off of last week. I could completely wrong. It's just a hunch. But nonetheless, this is the type of thing we're going to have to set up and do. Who's going to be carrying the ball off of those RPOs. So kind of case in point of the defense having to respect all options when you utilize all options. This play, Purdue seems to be in a man. When the receiver goes, the corner is going to come down, and now the nickel, number 17, down here next to the left end, he's going to have to watch, because right now he's watching that H-back, and when he comes down, he's going to have to worry about the receiver coming down. But this is an RPO. he's going to come off the edge, assuming that motion man's coming down, but he's going to cut up the. Another thing we've been talking about to help, the pretty porous offensive line is utilizing the running back in the pass game. And Purdue, the guy up top's playing a tighter man, but you see one already trickling back, and how deep the safety's playing off of the slot guy, or the nickel's playing off of the slot there. It's safety. But when they snap this, everybody starts dropping back to cover their zones. The running back's going to trickle out, and everybody's too deep. So now it's kind of used. They like to use the cushion against defenses. This is an example where you can use it against them, and you can do the same thing in man, because a guy's not going to run to the backfield to match up with the running back. So whether it's Grant, I would love to see Ramir Johnson in situations like this. I don't know if we will. We haven't. But I think we have a couple guys that can catch out of the backfield. That play, I think, is going to be there more often than not, especially if you're utilizing the RPO from both ways, with the running back running and the quarterback running. And the more you do things like this, these short, quick developing plays, the more you're going to start opening up Palmer deeper downfield, Washington on those over the middle routes that he likes to hit him on. You're going to create more areas of the field that they have to account for, and then you can go to a different spot. But most importantly, it's going to help take pressure off that offensive line. I mean, look at how quick the ball's out. So your offensive line isn't expected to sit there and hold a pocket for 5-6 seconds while a play develops downfield. So Trey Palmer's big touchdown play against Rutgers, Casey Thompson said that he noticed that the DBs were make solid eye contact with the guy that they were defending. And that's great that he picks things up and absorbs information throughout the game. I hope he can read things like this. I don't know that this quarterback necessarily read this play, or if when Purdue switches here, they just play it into their hands. But they line up in man with one guy over the top, one safety over the top. They're going to switch into a zone. Number 21 down here looks like he's in, an outside or like a nickel area, the safety. He's going to drop back. They're going to go too high and fall into a zone. The receiver that's in the slot up there by the B on the Big Ten, he's going to just run that corner straight out of the play. He's going to just take him as far down the field as he can. And the wide receiver at the top of the screen is going to curl underneath and get to the flat of that zone. It's going to be wide open, and it's going to open up the left side. The receiver on the high side is going to curl. He's going to run about 10 yards. He's going to curl down in the flat of that zone. We're going to lose sight of it from the camera, but as soon as it zooms in, you're going to see how open the flat is that he curls kind of under and sits in, or is running to. And then now you've just got, after that missed tackle, you've basically got like a punt return situation. And I really hope that we can get Palmer in some situations like this where he can catch the ball in stride and get some one-on-ones in open field with the safeties after he's gotten some receptions in open field. But I think a lot's going to come down to how, one, on plays like this, how much time Casey has, and two, how well he reads what the defense is giving him. And, judging off previous games, he seems like he does a pretty good job with it. So we'll see what happens.
Prediction time. Any chance the Huskers pull off the upset?
I think there's a chance. I don't think it's a big chance, but I think it's going to take throwing some things at Purdue that they have not seen on tape. I think a ton is going to come down to the quarterback run play and making the defense honest. I think our defense has shown enough that they'll be able to manage not letting the game get out of hand. But if they're on the field a lot, I don't think it'll take too much time, and it'll be too much for them to handle. They'll be tired because they're gonna spread us and show us a lot of different things. So I think this really comes down to how well we can exploit things on the offensive side of the ball.
I've got a Purdue win 27-21. And I think we'll not be too upset about that when the time comes.
Yeah, this is one of those games where I don't want to see a lot. I know I said it the last two games. I don't want to see a lot of regression. I'm expecting a loss, but I'm almost expecting a lower scoring game than that. If we can manage to keep the offense on the field for a while, I'm thinking more like a 17-24, 21, something like that, Purdue. If we can keep it close and lose, okay, and we can get on to the next game and hopefully keep building off of that. I just don't want things to get out of hand with our defense being on the field too long, and all of a sudden it's a Oklahoma type game where we're getting blown out after we kind of started off looking okay, and we feel like I don't want to over dramatize it and say that the program's taking steps backwards, but like I said before, I want us to take gradual steps and at worst plateau out and go back up. I think a close loss, as much as it would suck to take a loss after we've gotten some momentum going, would be acceptable, doable with what we have.
Tell us what you guys think in the comments. Do you have any predictions yourselves for the game? Do you think that Huskers are going to get the upset? If so, what score? If you think we're going to lose, what score? Hit the like button for us. We'll see you guys after the game. Go Big Red.